Good morning, good evening, good afternoon, everyone. My name is Vanessa Duplessis, and I want to welcome you to the Rippln Mission Hangout this fine Saturday, October 19th. I am, as always, excited to be a part about the Ripple. I got my Rippln pink shirt on, and last night in the mail, I got my fabulous Martian smartwatch. I haven't figured out how to use it all yet, but that's my plan for today. I'm super excited to be able to take my son to karate, and as I'm driving, I'll be calling everybody. So if you're one of my friends out there watching, just wait for me to be calling you, and I'm going to be playing, Miss M, if you will. We have a fabulous hangout today. We're going to share a lot of cool information with you. We are going to actually have a slide deck, so that will be fun as well. I have on the line with me Jim Bunch and Michael Rutherford. So what I want to do right now is turn you over to one of the Rippln co-founders, the fabulous Jim Bunch, who is going to give you an overview of where we have come and what we're about and where we are going, because we've got some great stuff coming out not only in the next 10 days but as we roll to the end of the year. So Jim, she's all yours.
Thank you, Vanessa. Thank you, Michael, for being on today, and it's great to reconnect with all of you guys. I know that it's been a little while since we've been on the Hangout, but I want to take you through a little bit of where we've been, and then Michael's going to take you a little bit into where we're going. And I think it's important, as I'm going to go ahead and start sharing my screen here, I think it's important for us to really honor everything that has happened in such a short period of time. So Vanessa, will you tell me, can you see my screen? Are we live there?
Yes, we can see your screen.
Okay, perfect. So let's talk about this epic quest that we've been on. And some of you have been, fairly new to this process. Some of you may have been around since the very beginning, which started almost a year ago. And one of my favorite quotes that really describes the last 6 to 12 months is, "Business is evolving at the speed of thought," by somebody you may know of, by Bill Gates. Right, and if anybody can talk about creating a change or a transformation on the planet, I think he's qualified. So I want to take you through a little bit of the timeline of our past and, of course, where we're headed. And let's talk about what we've accomplished in the last 12 months and, of course, some of the challenges that we've overcome. Now, here's the challenge we have today, is we've got about 30 minutes, and so I'm going to take you through about 20 slides in 10 minutes or less. So just hold on to your hats, because this is a bit of a history review lesson. So if you remember back to last October, between October and April, right, October 2012 to April 2013, we were really in about 180 days of what we call education and buzz building. And from the education standpoint, we talked about 3 trends that we feel and still feel are going to transform the way that commerce is done, transform the way that business is done, and transform, hopefully, the way that you do life overall. Of course, the first one was mobile. When we talk about mobile, we've already seen a massive transformation happen just between 2005 and 2013 when you take a look at the inauguration of the 2 popes that we've had, right? What do you see as the big difference? Well, in 2005, not too many screens lighting up the pictures here, but in 2013, it's a sea of screens, and we're educating people about these mobile trends where 87% of the world's population already has mobile phones, and the number of smartphones are increasing every single day. If you walk down the streets of any busy city, you notice that most people have their heads down into their phones. And of course, we talked about the idea that on these phones are apps. There's apps for everything. And that this really is the new modern-day real estate, or land rush, if you will. So if you can get your apps onto the home screen of somebody's phone, that's like oceanfront property. That's like golf course front property, or being on the edge of a ski slope. You want to have your apps on there. And we talked about how many of these apps didn't even exist in our consciousness just a couple of years ago, and yet now everybody knows of a lot of these apps because they're on our phone, and we see them 50 to 150 times a day. So again, I'm giving you a quick overview, but that was mobile. And then we talked about social, and we said, there's a lot happening in social. Just take one of the social companies called Facebook. In 2013, had over 1.1 billion monthly active users. That's 1/7 of our planet is logging into a website called Facebook. And the big trend was those mobile active users were 751 million of those as of March. So it's increasing year over year over year. And Facebook even said, hey, we're not a social company. We're a mobile company that has social involved. And we also talked about how this social engagement has a social value. And we said in the first quarter of 2013, for example, their revenue from advertising alone was $1.25 billion. That was 8% of Facebook's revenue. Yes?
I'm gonna send you a text, but your slides are not advancing if in fact you are advancing them.
Oh, really? Huh. They have been, yeah, I've been advancing them. Okay.
But you sounded good.
It sounded good. So all you're seeing is the first one?
Now we're good. Now we're advancing, but for a little bit there we weren't.
All right. So what are you seeing right now?
At the speed of thought. You might go back and actually just run through the slides so people can see what the images were real quick.
All right. How about that? All right. So, yeah, this slide was what we've accomplished. This was the mobile, social, and gamification. Are you seeing these slides?
Yes, we are.
Okay. So, again, 180 days of education and buzz. And then I talked, of course, about the difference between 2005 and 2013, where hardly anybody had mobile devices, and now everyone is carrying mobile devices. By the way, stop me again if for some reason it's not keeping up. Then we talked about, again, 87% of the world, of the 7 billion people, are carrying mobile phones, and the percentage of smartphones is actually increasing drastically. Almost everybody now that we run into has a smartphone. And of course, what are they looking at? Well, they're looking at these portals into our world called apps. And there's an app for everything, right? So this was really the mobile trend. And if you think about it, a lot of these brands we didn't even know existed a few years ago. But let's now move into the second major trend we called social. And if you look at social, of course, Facebook is the 600-pound gorilla. And they've got 1.1 billion people every year, actually, I'm sorry, every month that are logging in. 751 million of those are logging in from mobile. Ask yourself this question: where do you usually access Facebook now? Right? Are you accessing it just in your home or just in your office, or are you accessing it from your mobile devices, throughout your day? So then we talked about all of that engagement has a value associated to it, and Facebook is monetizing your friends, your audience, your content, your posts, and they're doing it to the tune of over $1 billion in ad revenue every quarter. Now think about that. If you had a social network or a website that had 1 billion people a month logging in, and you were generating $1 billion a quarter in ad revenue, advertising other people's products and services off of your audience, your contacts, your material, doesn't it make sense that you have a social value? And that was our big education push. And then we said, if you really want to look at a huge trend, take a look at gamification. This concept that millions and millions of people around the world are logging in and playing games every single day. And we said a lot of people are actually opting out of life, and they're opting into this game world. As a matter of fact, in the U.S. alone, there's 183 million active gamers that are playing on an average of 13 hours a week. Now, I know a lot of you guys are like, I don't have time for games. But the reality is we do have time for games because most of our lives have been gamified. And we talked about this trend of games that went from neighborhood games to board games to video games to console games, so like Atari and Nintendo and Xbox, into this thing called social games like World of Warcraft and Farmville, which are now crawling onto our phones to the tune of 86% of the downloads on smartphones are actually games. 86% of the downloads from iTunes are games, things like Mafia Wars and Tap Resorts and Words with Friends. And we said, there's games for everything. There's games for health, there's games for shopping. I mean, even airlines have gamified how they do it. What's our point in all of this? Well, all of these companies, Instagram, Words with Friends, Voxers, Pinterest, every single one of these companies is being driven by you. You're the one that are sharing your pictures. You're the one that are making your posts and updates. You're the ones that are actually inviting other people to download and connect with you on these apps. And so we said behind the scenes, why are companies getting millions of dollars in startup capital for these Silicon Valley startups? Why? Because the name of the game always has been and always will be eyeball acquisition. In other words, how many people can you introduce to your products and services, whether it's through an app, whether it's through an advertisement, whether it's through a social network. It's how many eyeballs can you get and how long can you get them to take a look at your material, your information. So the other last two pieces that we talked about here is we said, Rippln came about because we saw what we call a blue ocean. Now, a red ocean means that you go in and you compete in an existing marketplace. There's a lot of competition, there's a lot of demand, but there's this value cost trade-off. It's really hard to succeed by being the same as everybody else. And we said, what if Rippln could create a blue ocean? Not bloody waters, but clean waters. What if we could create an uncontested market space? What if we could make the competition irrelevant? What if we could create and capture a whole new demand by aligning this whole system in pursuit of a new business model? And that new business model looked like this. We said, what if we had a fresh perspective where you could actually download apps, just like you're already doing? What if you could refer friends, just like you're already doing? But in this case, what if you could earn rewards? What if there was a system in place that allowed you to not only share and not only track, but to begin to monetize these things that we're doing on a day in and day out basis? And by the way, not just in the language that you speak, not just in the country that you live in, but what if you could do this around the world? Because we believe, and this is part of our vision, we believe that the whole world truly is connected. And we see the lives of every single person on the planet can be transformed for the better, right? If you're going to build a company and you're going to connect the planet, doesn't it make sense to level up the game? And we believe that one of the ways to do that is to create something called incentivized sharing. We're already doing sharing, but we haven't really been getting incentivized or rewarded for it. So what if you could continue to share and continue to have fun and make posts and communicate and connect and play games and do all the stuff you're doing, but what if, for the first time in history, we could create a software that actually tracked all of it? And what if part of our mission was to help you take back your social graph and begin to reward you for your social value? In other words, every time you make a post, every time you invite a friend, every time you share an app, there's a value created for the companies that you're introducing your friends to. Same thing happens when you invite somebody to a movie. I guarantee that at one point in your life, you've talked about a movie that you enjoyed. Well, you did free marketing, you did free advertising, and that's added up to hundreds of millions and billions of dollars in free advertising for those companies. So the last piece we talked about during this 6 month of education and buzz was a 4-step launch. And I wanted to reintroduce you guys to this concept because the reality is this. When you look back over the last 12 months, the first 6 months was really built a foundation for all of us to be able to play. We talked about this concept of eyeball acquisition, and we said, hey, we want to help you and incentivize you by giving you something called an NDA system. Now, if you've been around a while, you remember this, where people had to actually sign an NDA to get in and start using our Rippln tracking software. And we talked about how we were going to move from eyeball acquisition to step 2, which was a transaction model. And we said we're going to start micro-funding. So we got to build the platform, we got to have people start to get on the platform, and then we've got to test it and make sure that these micro-transactions will go through. And when we say micro-transactions, we're talking about, a penny to 99 cents to $4.99 to $10. And once you start getting above that, now you move into real currency. But we said, what if you could actually share an app with somebody for free? And what if they bought like a 99-cent in-app purchase? Could you track, number one, the sharing of that app? So if Michael sends an app to Vanessa, Vanessa sends it to her mom sends it to her sister, can we track that progress? That's number one. Number two, if Vanessa's sister ends up buying something in one of the apps that's been shared, and she invests 99 cents in that app, can we pay out a penny on that? Can we pay out 10 cents on that? Can we pay out 50 cents on that? So we had to test the model, right? And then we talked about the next two stages being mobile and web commerce. Could we then connect with products and services outside of apps? Could we connect with websites? Could we connect with hard products? Could we then eventually, once we do that and we track those back through the Ripple, could we then move into a fourth phase where consumers become creators, where you guys can go out and find or create the best products in the world that you want and bring those into the Ripple so that when you're sharing them with people, guess who gets rewarded? You do. You're doing all this marketing for companies. Doesn't it make sense that you can passively be rewarded for doing that? So I just wanted to bring this up, and I know that's a lot of information fast, but for those of you who've been around, this conversation should at least sound familiar, right? And when we talk about timelines in technology, it seems that a lot of people forget how quickly things happen. And that was the first 180 days, right? Now let's talk about what's happened between April of 2013 and now. So this is October 19th, all right, which is another 180 days. So we've basically had 280-day periods, in other words, a year. And this last 6 months, or two 90-day periods, from April to October, I want to talk about we moved out of education phase and we moved into the actual doing it phase. And we started testing technology. We started ramping things up. So here we're going to come through the next 6 months. And we want to do this in the next couple of minutes. And Michael, you know, you were at this event, right? You were here when the NDA was launched in Dallas, Texas on April 13th. You remember that day?
Yeah, to say that it was pandemonium was probably an understatement. People were freaking out. And, you know, it's funny, as I'm looking back at that screen, I remember looking at that, the cell phone here on the right side of the three images, the one on the top right, and it shows, it shows how many, you know, ripples, how many, you know, how many fans, how many countries. I remember thinking, man, if my team could do 3,800 people in the next 45 days, we might really be able to build something. And you know what's interesting is just my group grew by 4,500 people overnight, the very first night. And I remember counting down to 1,000, like, oh my gosh, we hit 1,000. Well, it was only 2 or 3 hours after we even started the buzz campaign, and I'd never seen anything happen like that. I mean, you could go to the bathroom and come back, grab your phone, and hit refresh, and it would grow by 200 people. And that was on the very first day. And I think all of us were blown away by the fact that we could put 10,000 people into the Ripple in one day. And it was just like a horse that just took off out from underneath you, and you had to try to play catch up for the rest of your life. That was how it started that night.
I know, it was insane, wasn't it? And there was a buzz in the air. It was incredible. But you know, we invested 6 months in educating people about what was going to come, and then when we turned it on, we had this pent up demand. But then we had to use May and June, and we had to actually start the Ripple going global. So many of you will remember this. I mean, it was in English to begin with, and next thing you know, we've got our videos talking about the Ripple in Spanish and Portuguese and French and Chinese and Japanese and Russian, and the Wealth Revolution videos started coming out. And so we gave you tools to be able to explain more so that you didn't have to go out and educate people on it. You simply had to invite them to a video and then invite them to opt in. And as Michael said, you could see that growing in the palm of your hand. And what we expected, you guys, if you remember when we were on stage here in Dallas, Texas, we set a big goal. And Michael's on stage, and myself, and Brian, and Jonathan Budd, and all of us. So there's about 12 of us on stage. And we were talking to the 750 people in the audience. And we said, guys, our big goal, right, our big goal is to hit 500,000 people in 6 months. Can we hit 500,000 people in the Ripple in 6 months? Well, what that ended up happening was we ended up hitting 1 million people in 79 days. That's less than 3 months. So from April 14th to July 2nd, we hit 1 million people in the Ripple. Now, for some people, 1 million people doesn't really make sense. But if you've ever tried to start up a business or a website, ask yourself, how many people do you have in your database right now? How many people are you communicating with on a daily basis? Let me give you an example here so this puts this in perspective. You know, Kickstarter, which is a household name, took 30 months to get to 1 million free users. Foursquare took 13 months to get to 1 million users. Dropbox took 7 months. Facebook, the 600-pound gorilla that started at Harvard, then went to Oxford, then it went, you know, from there on out, it took them 10 months to get to 1 million free users. How long did it take you guys in the Ripple? 79 days, okay? Not 300 days like Facebook. 79 days. Because the conversation was such an amazing conversation. And by the way, it still is. If you think about 1 million people versus where Facebook's at now, which is 1 billion people, they didn't do all that overnight. It took them 4.5 years to get really as a, you know, what people would call a household name. 4.5 years. So we wanted to put some of this into perspective. Now, this takes us from April, May, June, July, all the way up to August. And what we had to start doing was we had to start powering up people. In other words, we went from just having fans to starting to have players. And we gave people the opportunity to get onto the business side, to start up their own small or home-based business wheel, or what I call a mobile-based business. Because from the palm of your hand, in your smartphone, you could actually activate a player's license for less than $100 and $30 a month. Now, I've started multiple businesses. Some of them have been small businesses. Some of them have been pretty large businesses that we've taken public. But never in my past have I been able to start up a business for $95 and $30 a month, right? With none of the overhead of starting up a multi-million-dollar business. And never have I had the kind of software and tracking that we provided here at Rippln, right? So now we've gamified the player up experience, and you can actually go into your back office and you can not only see, as Michael was talking about, all the fans that are in your Ripple, but you can see all the players in your Ripple, and you can see what level of business they're building. So you know exactly who to play the game with to take it to the next level. Now, the next slide I want Michael to talk about, because this next slide was another groundbreaking piece of technology. So again, by the way, one other piece on this. A friend of mine is in another industry, actually, I'm sorry, a similar industry with a different company. And I asked him, I said, you know, in your business, how do you know who to work with in your business? How do you know who your rising stars are? How do you know who your leaders are? How do you know where to invest your time? And he said, well, I've got to log into this back office. I've got to pull down this really confusing report. And then I've got to, from that confusing report, I have to kind of figure out, based on our compensation model, who of these people I need to work with to help me and them take their compensation next level. And I said, how long does that take? And he goes, honestly, I spend a couple of hours a month just trying to figure it out, and then I have to go do the work. And I said, that's interesting. I go, we've built a platform that lets us do that in a couple of seconds. And he just kind of stood back and he's like, wow. He goes, so not only can you figure that out, everybody in your company can? I go, yeah. We took the guesswork out of where to grow your business, and we put it right in the palm of your hands. So that was a pretty big thing when we started doing the power-ups. And Michael, we'll talk a little bit about this next release that happened again just a little bit later, that same month in August, and Photo Guesseroo.
Yeah, I'm happy to do that. You know, one of the things that's funny, I don't think you can see my screen. Maybe you can. I have a little video game. It's called Extreme Road Trip 2. It's like a race car game. It's totally addicting, and it's insane. And the progress tracking of this game is really like our business, to where everything that you do in the game is measurable. And then what your next task is that you have to do in order to progress through the game is predictable right in front of you. You can see what it is. Well, we've gamified our Rippln business model just like a game. I think the gamification part, Jim, of what you were talking about, of measuring how to get, I guess, quote unquote, promoted through your Ripple. How do you climb through the game? How do you climb through the pay or the compensation ranks? We've gamified the whole thing. So when you were going through the beginning of mobile social gamification, gamification to me is intertwined in everything that we do, especially and not limited to what I want to talk about right now on this screen, which is Photo Guesseroo. If you think about every company that you'd ever joined in your life, I don't care if it's in the mortgage business, the insurance business, if you want to go sell cosmetics for Mary Kay, or whatever you could go do, to generate income. How would you go tell the world about that new project? Well, we created, for the very first time that I've ever seen or I've ever been aware of, a viral, gamified, and appified, which means it feels like a game and it's an app, invitation process. The fact that I can go into my phone, by the way, brand new, I don't think you can see the color, little brand new green 5C, super fun. You can go into my phone, you can click on Photo Guesseroo. I just got my phone, so I don't know where the heck it is. It's in here somewhere. I got too many apps. You can click on Photo Guesseroo, and you can invite your friend from inside of an app to join your business. Jim, that's never happened before. Ask your boy, any of the guys. I mean, you've got a friend that makes $100,000 a month in a business. Ask him if he wanted to if somebody brand new joined his business and they wanted to tell 100 of their friends, how would they do it? They would have to go to some outside community, Facebook, Google+, Twitter, Instagram, text, email, a phone call, or something, to message them. Then they're going to direct them to another website to watch a video, sign up, do something else. We've eliminated all that stuff. We've said, you know what? Why don't we gamify the whole thing and appify it? Put the invitation inside of a phone, inside of an app, create a puzzle, hit send, and when your friend gets the link to check out the puzzle, which may be a picture of a bird or a surfing or something, they now can go in and solve the puzzle. But in order to solve the puzzle, they got to join your business, which is insane. So the Guesseroo process, that accomplishment for us isn't a small deal. I mean, it's a massive. I mean, it's monstrous in the industry that we're all playing in. No one's ever done that before. We've gamified and appified the invitation process. No one's ever done that. First time ever. And if we take that same accomplishment and apply it to everything that we're going to do, from whether it be the communicator that we're going to roll out, our chat app, or any other thing we ever do, that one thing is industry changing forever. I promise you.
Yeah, it's pretty incredible. It's pretty incredible, and a lot of people don't understand, what it takes to do this behind the scenes. But keep in mind, we're only talking about from April, May, June, July to August, right? And this kind of technology, which doesn't exist, has been built, tested, and launched, which is off the charts. Then, just a couple of weeks later, we actually got it into iTunes, and then the tracking system went live. So we proved that initial concept that you can, as Michael said, download apps, refer friends for free, and then earn rewards if they purchase anything. Now, this was just our first product. This was just our first app that we were introducing to make sure that the technology worked. Are there going to be other ones? Absolutely, right? And what was so amazing is just a couple of days later, we started the Power Up payout process. So if you remember back here in August, we allowed people to start powering up and getting access to their dashboards in the back office to see who they could work with. And then just September 13th, we started paying people out for the people that they had been, playing the games with. And it was a groundbreaking piece, because now what we've done is we, for the first time in history, have given people an opportunity to share free apps, to share games, and to monetize those ripples from people across the world. Now, think about this, you guys. This is not a little deal. But where else in your life, can you have a business in the palm of your phone that not only can send people out, that you can, send out invitations, you can track it, and then with the same app on your phone, you can hit the Pay Me button, and it'll transfer the currencies that you've earned into your own bank account from people in every country around the world. That's unheard of. That's groundbreaking technology, and I think what happens is that we forget sometimes that this technology doesn't exist, that this technology was actually created. And people go, oh my gosh, it's taken forever. No, it hasn't. We're talking about every 4 to 6 weeks, new groundbreaking technology has been given to you for $95 and $30 a month to create a global business that can pay you currency from around the world for products that you're giving away for free into the palm of your hand. I mean, that's unheard of. So I want to put this into perspective, which is why we gave you this bit of a history lesson, is that you guys are leveraging millions of dollars in assets that have been created from ideas that we talked about for 6 months that we implemented during the next 6 months, right? And then to make it even better, we said, okay, well, we started microfunding, but what if we could increase that? Because it's nice to make, you know, a penny or a dollar or a couple of dollars, but wouldn't it be great if you could actually improve the quality of your life and get commissioned for it? So we ran a contest, and Michael was number 2 in this contest. Diane Hackman was number 1, and I believe, Vanessa, you're on there, right? Where were you, Vanessa?
I was number 4.
Number 4, right? And we ran a 90-day challenge. We're still running this 90-day challenge. We're just a couple of weeks into it right now, where this 90-day challenge where people are focusing on their wealth, their health, and their happiness. They're playing the first game that transforms your wealth, your health, and your happiness. And we got an incredible deal for people who wanted to do that, and 50% of the revenues from that $500 product, which is actually normally $1,000, it was $500, 50% of that $500 flowed back through the Rippln. So now we went from 99-cent transactions to hundreds of dollars transactions right through the Rippln for something that's not an app. It's not a hard product. It's a virtual product. It's a coaching program that changes your life. Again, another groundbreaking product. And then what happens, right? What does Vanessa have on her wrist? Well, we said before that we're going to release hard products. So in the same month, in October, right now, we released the first hard product. We released before Apple, before Best Buy, before a lot of these companies. As a matter of fact, you're just now starting to see commercials for some of the watches on TV where they show you, you know, how Captain Kirk had it and Maxwell Smart and James Bond. They're showing you this concept, by the way, of a smartwatch, which has been talked about for decades, and we released it into the Rippln as a product before some of these major companies. So I guess I get excited. And Vanessa, you've got your watch on, right? Can you show people your watch? Right? That's pretty cool. Okay? So
It's upside down because my wrist is upside down, but it's pretty cool.
And what does it do, Vanessa? What does that watch do?
Well, I'm still figuring out all of the details, but I will be able to, you know, speak into it where I can have a conversation as though I'm talking to someone on the phone. I can voice text someone, so I can say, you know, text hubby, pick up milk, and it'll show up on his phone as a text for him to pick up milk. It's obviously a watch, so you can tell what time it is. And I'm still figuring out some of the other nuances because I haven't figured out all the bells and whistles yet. But for me, the big thing is when I'm driving down the road, I want to be able to text without having to actually type, and that really is what excites me, much less the speaker phone component. So I don't, if my phone's in my pocket, or the big thing is when my phone's on the counter on the other side of the room, I don't have to get up because it will clearly identify through caller ID who's calling you. You can also make calls, and I can say, you know, call Jim Bunch, and it'll call, and I don't have to get up. So the lazy side of me likes that.
All right, well, and here's the way I look at it, and I'm sure, Michael, you think of it the same way. This is a marketing tool because right now this is the coolest, neatest thing. So if you're at a Starbucks and you say, call Michelle or text Michelle, the person that's standing next to you is going to go, what is that? Oh, this is our cool new smartphone watch. No kidding, where'd you get it? Well, hold on, I'll send you an invitation to something called the Rippln, and give me your text, and I'll send you, you know, a game that you can play. I'll send you all kinds of cool stuff this company Rippln is doing.
You know what's funny, Jim? Everybody that knows me knows my Starbucks addiction and knows how I'm there every single day because I go on the way home from dropping my kids off. I work there at least 2 days a week where I sit there. I can guarantee you this coming next week, I will be putting a ton of people in my Rippln.
And it's just cool. I mean, it's just cool market. It's a marketing piece. So, you know, the amazing thing about this, you guys, is you really need to take a look at all of the different firsts that are happening inside the Rippln. Okay, and the time frame that this has happened in has literally been at the speed of thought. Do you realize that just 12 months ago, when we took you on this journey, we were talking about all the things that were going to be coming, and we did that for 6 months. It was called the buzz phase. And we talked about it going to be the buzz phase, and then we talked about going through the pre-beta phase, which, by the way, we're still in pre-beta. We've got 1.5 million people that have said, I'm interested, and then we had to take some time to actually deliver on what we had been talking about, and now we've tested our technology. We've started to prove that it's working, and now we're getting ready to go into the pre-beta phase, where we go back to our marketing, where we go back to educating people on how amazing it is, the things that some of us in the Rippln have already taken for granted, that the rest of the world is going to be blown away by. So when you think about this, you guys, we're at a whole new reality. And one of the big promises that we talked about, and this is what Michael's going to come on and talk about now, because this is in the next 2 weeks, is this concept of being able to share not just the PhotoGuessRoo apps, and not just the communication app, which is going to be groundbreaking, but what if we could also share other people's apps? You know, world-class, already in-demand products that people are wanting and they're downloading. So, Michael, take us through this concept and why you're so excited about the next, well, actually, I guess now the next 9 days before we launch AppShare, and why people should not wait until then, but they should be talking to everybody today. Take us through that, please.
Absolutely, I'm super happy to, and leave the image up there, because I think there's a ton of power behind it. Y'all can hear my voice, but look at that screen. There's a ton of power behind it, because we're all familiar with. It's funny. I got a Facebook chat just now by Brandon Murray, and he posted. He's like, man, this is, you know, he goes, so many people have forgotten this story. This is the chassis that the Rippln was built on. The transparency to see your Rippln value in the marketplace, because we're all sharing apps and games with our friends without being rewarded. And, you know, so I'm looking at my phone's exploding, text, email. I mean, people are going crazy about today's Hangout, because they're being reseated back to the origin, or the birth of the idea of Rippln. And this is it. This image right now on that screen, the current search and discovery and download, that process is broken. It's gone. You know, if you remember, the app market, the app business, the app store itself is only a handful of years old, 4 or 5 years old. The iPhone is only 6 years old or so. Very, very new business. So the concept of sharing apps, the idea of sharing apps isn't new. But what is unique to us, what is completely innovative to us, is a couple things, Jim. It's one, the ability to track an invitation, almost like a strand of DNA, like a helix, like a invitation. Who invited who invited who invited who? That's one thing, being able to measure it and track it and visually see it. Literally taking a microscope and looking over your social network and going, okay, who did you invite? Who did they invite? Who did they invite? And then the second piece to that no one's ever done before is throwing monetization on top of it, throwing value, a real dollar amount value, we call it a Rippln value, on top of sharing apps. I mean, it's a simple sentence. Somebody says, well, you know, what's this whole AppShare program about? And you could ask them a rhetorical question. What's your favorite app? They go, Angry Birds. And you go, well, how did you find out about it? And you go, actually, my mom was playing it the other day at the house. I couldn't get her to talk to me, so finally I grabbed her phone and looked at her phone, and she's playing Angry Birds. And you go, what the heck is this? And she goes, oh, it's a bunch of really irritated and pissed off birds. She's like, how does that work? Next thing you know, she's on iTunes downloading Angry Birds. So that process of a mom telling a daughter about a game, or one kid telling another kid about Candy Crush, or whatever it is, or one friend, Mike, telling another friend, Brian, about Snapchat, and then Brian telling Kevin, and Kevin telling Nathan, and then Nathan telling, I mean, that process is not new. That's how every app on earth has grown. But what we're doing are two things, the tracking of it and the monetization of it. How are you paid or compensated? By simply sharing an app with someone. So just for a second, for real, just like block everything out that's around you, and think about how often in our world that's taking place. As you're standing in line at Starbucks, as you're at pickup sticks waiting for your dinner, as you're sitting waiting to board a plane, everyone around you's faces are in their phones, and they're doing that one activity all day long. You don't have to train someone on sharing Candy Crush with their friends. Why? Because they've already got 50 or 100 million people that have done it, to the tune, I just saw a recent figure yesterday, that it's estimated Candy Crush is doing between $1 and $3 million a day in revenue. It's jumped astronomically since their last statistics. That Candy Crush stat has gone ballistic. You're talking between $1 and $3 million a day in revenue. So when you're talking about our app share program, what does it look like? It's as simple as downloading apps, sharing them with your friends, and then being rewarded for them. There's not a lot of discussion around that. How does it work? You download an app, you share it with your friends. When they download it, you get rewarded. Okay, well, what else? Well, let's take it one step. I mean, for real, there's not a lot of training involved. We wanted to create a model or implement a business model into the Ripple that we didn't have to change people's habits. Jim, I'm sure you could talk for hours about habit-changing products. We don't have one. We have a model that's bolting on top of everybody's daily habits already. Playing games, sharing them with your friends. Hit the next slide, Jim. So the model is pretty simple. You download apps, you share them with your friends, and you earn rewards from them. And if you take that another step further, what if you've built a Ripple? Like, for those of you that are watching, raise your hand if you've got at least a person or two or three in your Ripple somewhere on Earth. We've got people all over the globe, from the Galapagos Islands, from Sri Lanka to Madagascar to Houston, Texas, in the global Ripple. Imagine as all of these people start participating in this app share model, and if they're in your Ripple, not only is the person that's getting the app getting a cool app, that's one person. The person that's sharing the app with them is getting real money. I'm talking real money from a free app. There's no more cool, sexy, fun, exciting, simple business on Earth. Download Candy Crush, share it with your friends, get compensated. Build a team of people downloading Candy Crush, sharing it with their friends, get a piece or a sliver of every single person's download. I mean, Jim, that's what we're talking about. That's the simplicity of this app share model. And it's not just Candy Crush. It's not just USA apps. There'll be different apps for different countries. There'll be different apps for iPhone and Android. So don't go in this like this with a microscope. Go at this like with a telescope. There you go. Go at this with a telescope. Look at the bigger picture of the Ripple, not what apps do you have today. It's more of a catalog than it is just a few apps. So it's beginning with a handful, inclusive of Candy Crush, and then every single few weeks or month, it'll pop open into additional ones that people are going to be able to receive real rewards, real money off of people downloading free apps. Does that make some sense?
Makes perfect sense, and I think this is really important, Michael. What you're talking about here is we're introducing people to the Rippln ecosystem, because now we have the coaching offers, right? We have loyalty offers, which means that you're being rewarded for recruiting fans and players. You're just inviting people to really fun, cool stuff. And then there's also transaction offers. Every time a transaction takes place on the Ripple, there's money that's flowing through the Ripple. And that's what we've always talked about, as we said, wouldn't it be great if you could take back your social graph? Wouldn't it be great if now, for the first time in history, you could play a game that improved the quality of your life, but it also helped you financially? Wouldn't it be great if everything that we've talked about for 6 months became a reality? Well, it has. And that's what we've been doing for the last 6 months, is helping people to understand where we were headed and then actually rolling it out step by step. We've talked about this before, and I think it's important to mention this, you guys, is that to build a billion-dollar company, you have to lay the proper foundation. If you want to build a $100,000 company, you can literally launch it and do that in 30 to 60 days. You can build that infrastructure. You want to build $1 million company, it's going to take you a year or so to figure out what to do and not to do, to put the right infrastructure in place and then to market it. That's $1 million company. But if you want to build $1 billion company, you've got to invest the time and the resources, especially, by the way, if it's $1 billion company, in a market that doesn't exist. You've got to invest the time and the resources to create that market. And that's what we've done. I know that because we've done that before. So this is something where we look back and we go, wow, it's taking a long time. No, it's not. If you go back over these slides and you realize how far we've come as a community from when we were just vision casting to now we are actually in the game. We're playing the game. And what we think is going to happen in the next 6 months, the next 2 90-day periods, is that the commerce side of this and the growth is going to accelerate again. If you remember, the reason we didn't release the communication app initially was because we realized just 30 days into that massive growth, when we had 500,000 people in the Ripple, you know, from April to May, we realized if we release that communication app, we don't have the infrastructure in place to support it. And so we made the really tough decision and the right decision to pull back and to build the proper foundation, to actually rebuild the proper foundation so that we could build on top of that an opportunity to not just create a multi-billion-dollar company, because that's great, right? But to create millions of people who can, for the first time in their life, start a business from the palm of their hand, sharing free apps, connecting commerce, and meeting and connecting with people across the world that they didn't know. That's a pretty big deal, you guys. And you guys can do that now for very little. Now, I want to talk about one piece as we wrap this up, and then maybe Michael and Vanessa, you guys can wrap this up here too, is for those of you who become what we call a powered up player. In other words, you graduate from being a fan, which, by the way, being a fan is always what? It's free. And what that means is you can invite people into the Ripple. You can test drive this technology for free. You can actually see if you're going to be able to build this business. And all you have to do is invite somebody that invites somebody that invites somebody. It's that simple. You can actually play that game for 30 days and see how you do it, or as long as you want. And then when you start to recognize, like Michael and Vanessa and a lot of other people have, that this is actually a business that you can have fun at and you can get rewarded for, well, then you can actually make the investment to start up your own business. So that investment for anybody who joins the Ripple between now and October 28th is $95 and $30 a month. That helps you go from a fan to a player. Now, we're not going to go into all the details of everything you get, but it's suffice to say you're getting a lot more than $130 worth of value just for doing that. Okay? Now, that's the first thing. Everybody who waits until after October 28th to become a powered up player, if you wait, you're welcome to do that. Be a fan as long as you'd like. But if you wait, you're going to be coming into the Ripple when you decide to power up at $298. Okay? Why? Well, because you're going to get everything that you get for the $95 plus this app sharing platform that Michael has been talking about. So the ability to not just share our apps, but to share other people's apps and to get rewarded for it is going to be, instead of $95, $298 and $30 a month. Okay? So we just want to be clear that the reason that you want to power up now is it's going to save you a couple $100, and anybody who powers up now not only gets all of the stuff we've talked about with the current player tools and all the opportunity there, you're also going to get the app craze thrown in for free, okay? Which is pretty cool. Now, I think Michael explained this, but I want to talk a little bit about this, what this means. When you share Candy Crush or you share whatever the other apps are that we roll out first, and we're talking about rolling out 5 apps first to test it, to make sure everything works, and then we'll release, the next apps and the next apps and the next apps. What that means is, if Candy Crush is downloaded by one of your friends who doesn't already have it on their phone, you're going to earn approximately $1 for doing that. Okay? So if they don't already have Candy Crush on their phone and you say, oh my gosh, you got to download this fun app, it's totally cool. They go, all right, cool, I'll check it out, it's free. They download it, Candy Crush is paying the Ripple $2, $1 of that goes to you. Right into the palm of your hand, right into your currency bucket. All right, how cool is that? And the same thing with the other apps. So we're splitting the commissions that these companies are paying with the people who are sharing the apps. The free apps. You're literally getting paid to share free apps. So to recoup your $300 investment, what do you have to do? Well, at some point, you've got to share with 300 people free apps. Now, the other way to look at this is if you meet one person, would they download 2 apps? Would they download 3 or 4 or 5 free apps? Maybe, right? I know I would if they were cool apps. Yeah, I'll download them for you, no problem, Michael. Absolutely. So you can literally build a business that way, and that's just the beginning of the process. So again, for everybody who powers up between now and October 28th, it's $95 and $30 a month. If you wait, it's $298 and $30 a month to start up a global, mobile, social, gamified business in the palm of your hands and leverage a multi-million-dollar platform and a multi-billion-dollar industries. That's what the game is that we're playing. So Michael and Vanessa, is there anything that you guys want to say before we wrap up about how excited your people are and why should they do this now? Anything about that?
Yeah, let me just share something real quick. I'm going to jump in, Vanessa, before I forget my thought. So as you were talking, you were saying, why is it taking so long? And then you said it's not. I don't know why, but the first thing that came into my mind is I have several friends that are pregnant right now, okay, including Brian's wife, Nancy, right? And people are always like, you know, a human baby, it's a 9-month process. So I thought, compared to what, is that a long time or a short time? So I went online. I literally have a list. Do you know a possum is only pregnant for 12 days and it has a baby? 12-day period of time for pregnancy, and then you got a baby possum. 12 days. So 9 months is a lifetime compared, to a possum. They might give birth 10 times, 10 different times in the same period one human person might. But just to end this weird, funky visual thought, an elephant in Africa, 660 days. It's pregnant for almost 2 years. So hey, Mom, if you think that 90 days or 9 months or whatever it is, 250 days is a long time, imagine a 2-year-long pregnancy. Think about that for a second. So when you compare, like you said, Jim, which I think it's such a valuable thing to remember, there's 2 thoughts. Is, do you think what we've done is taken a long time, but compared to what? Do you think $95 to become a player is a lot of money? Compared to what? People act as if they have a frame of reference or a basis of comparison. When was the last app sharing company that you were a part of? How long did it take to launch? How much did it cost to join? How much money did you make annually? Nobody can answer those questions because it hasn't existed before. This is the first time ever. So knowing that that's the case, just get used to the fact that it's going to happen when it happens. It may, we may not have an app in your country day one in the App Craze platform. Does it matter? It shouldn't. If you understand what the bigger picture of this entire conversation is about, we would all operate with an insane, tenacious level of enthusiasm and a sense of urgency to collapse the time frame it takes to go build your Ripple. That's the biggest difference right now. So what we're focused on, Jim, I know our team's goal is to increase the amount of players inside of our team by several hundred between now, which may seem like a short period of time, between now and the 28th. Now, granted, we have quite a bit of people on our team, but what if you have 5 players on your team today? Do you think you could double it to 10 total players between now and the 28th? In other words, could you pick up the phone and get on text, get on Facebook, and individually engage with all the fans in your Ripple, 1, and 2, people outside of Rippln that don't even know about Rippln? Could you share this Hangout with them? This is recorded. Do you think if you showed this to someone in your Ripple, they would go, Steve Gurr texted me and he's like freaking out. I got to have this slide deck. So if you got people in front of this material, do you think you could increase the amount of power-ups that you could get now before the 28th? Because like you said, Jim, it's a $200 savings. That's my complete and total focus right now is players, 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 players. And then once the 28th hits, instead of standing there by yourself with Candy Crush going, okay, let me go try to recoup my money, you've got an entire army, which may be 5 people, it may be 500 people, standing there with you the minute that the app share gun is fired. You all get to go out and start pumping. So just my last thought is if everybody's coming in as a player in app share for, like you said, $298, there's a percentage of that dollar of those dollars that are going to be shared into the coaching rewards plan. I'm not going to get into the details of that today. To me, does it matter? No, not really. I mean, eventually you're going to want to know the details, but I can tell you right now, concept is more powerful than details ever will be. And if you can pre-build enough of an audience into the launch on the 28th, the minute that thing goes, if your Ripple's doing 10 people per day, 10 people per week, or 10 people per month at that 298 level, you're making some significant cash. As you start winning the Rippln game and go from a fan to a player to a pro player, level 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, an all-star, now you start picking up additional revenues off of all the levels or the ripples of your group. So that's an entire training and conversation in and of itself, but there's so much that we can do if you lock arms with people in your Ripple and gear up for this launch. I mean, it's going to be completely insane.
Michael, we're not the kind of people who are going to, walk around holding checks and that kind of stuff. At least I hope we never become that. But, can you talk to people, because we just started the Power Up process not that long ago, right? And is it fair to say that for your investment of time and energy, you've made, a couple of dollars, a couple $100, a couple $1,000 just since we've turned on the commission engines?
Yeah, definitely, and I'm glad that you framed it that way. There's companies out there where their presentations have nothing to do with their product or their business story or their innovation or their uniqueness or their investment or their capital or their talent. It's some 19-year-old kid going to an ATM, punching in his code and watching the money fall out, and that's his business story. That ain't a long-term business, folks. That'll die before you even get rolling. So we don't even hardly talk about it. And what I can tell you is it's funny when we hit All-Star last month, and going from level 5 to All-Star, and I'm not telling you that this will be the case for you. It just depends on your group. But my check went up ×5. It was already a comma check, and it did a ×5. We're talking 5 figures in cash in the matter of the last week, just from one promotion with the Ultimate Game in one loyalty check. We haven't even began. Our ecosystem isn't even hardly rolling yet. Picture a Walmart with only one shelf and 9 products on it, and the rest of the building is wide open. Visually, that's what we have right now. That's what we have. So here's what I can tell you. If you push the gas pedal of this community down, it will produce for you. There's enough horsepower behind it, regardless of what your goals and ambitions are, it will produce for you. That's I think the cleanest way I can say that without going, look.
Well, I appreciate that. I think that's just a classy way to do it, and it's exciting to see people who will invest time and energy, and the return is actual currency. I love to see that. So, Vanessa, is there anything you want to say? We've got 2 minutes left, and then we'll wrap up and thank everybody for being here.
I do, Michael. Compared to what, that's going to stick in my head as I talk to my group. And the last words that you said in your last sentence is really where I want to come from. If you've listened to me before, this is big for me. Along with everything we have from the technological aspect and from the reward side and from everything that we're doing from the business side, the biggest, I think, piece of the puzzle that I'm here for really is our community and the transformation that we are making within the world and that we're going to continue to make within the world. I've made some fabulous new friends since coming to the Ripple months and months and months ago, and we really do care about each other and the success that each other is going to have. And so, plugging into the calls, plugging into the events, and plugging into, these Rippln Mission Saturday Hangouts, becoming a part of the community is really going to help you in your business. Engaging with the other Ripplers, either in your group or outside of your group. We are all one big family, and that may sound trite or whatever, but it's so much fun, especially at events. Next week we're going to be in Vegas for a huddle up, and it's the 25th and 26th that weekend, which is next weekend. We'd love to see you come out and join us. If you go to rippln.com/blog, the information is there. Come on out, hang out. One of the coolest things and one of the fastest ways to grow your business is to be around others who are already doing what you want to do and learning from them and gleaning information. But I really get fired up when we can talk about the fun that we had, the sharing that we do, and really encouraging each other's success. Michael, I'm thrilled you had a bang out week last week. I love watching, my bank account rise too, but I also can't wait to watch the brand new people coming to the Ripple have that same success. And that really is what community is about. And we are a fabulous community here together. So that's my piece that I want to end on. Y'all know I love y'all.
It's funny when you said brand new people, and I'm like, everybody's brand new. The reality is, we're all brand new in this, and as one of the co-founders, I want to do a special shout out to the teams, which is Vanessa and Michael and Jonathan and Brian and Craig and John and Terry and Jennifer and all of our support team that has been willing to take a risk and to do something that's never been done before. We could have gone any direction with the talent that we have. We could have done anything, but that didn't excite anybody. What excited us was doing something that's never been done before. And as Michael said, there's nobody that's even playing in this space yet. The last piece here is that I have quite a few other conversations that happen outside of the Ripple because of some of my other business interests. And I was talking with a gentleman who has started his own social network platform that is in competition with Facebook, and they're pulling some numbers right now. When I shared with him what we were doing, he was blown away. Now, here's a guy who's on Silicon Valley. He has a company that is getting major news publication right now, and the CEO of this company. And I talked to him just briefly. He did a little research, and he goes, "This is unbelievable. You guys are doing stuff that we're not even hearing about up here." So this is pretty incredible stuff, and we've got a lot of people to thank for it. If you ask yourself this question, what team do you want to bet on? Do you want to bet on a team that has accomplished in 12 months what we've done or not? I think it's a pretty good bet because this team has done something that nobody's ever done before, and we're executing flawlessly. When I say flawlessly, it doesn't mean there aren't errors. It means that the strategy that we've set out to do, which was to create this vision, to follow through on this mission, and to create products and services that were world-class, is happening. As a matter of fact, a lot of it has happened. The foundation has been laid, and a lot of people talk about their visions and missions and things they want to do, but take a look, you guys, at the last 12 months and ask yourself, could you have done this by yourself? We couldn't have. We haven't done this by ourselves, but what we have done, people are going to look back on in 3 to 5 years, and they're going to go, that company, those people, that community did something where they turned an idea into a reality. And as a result, the people who came and played were well rewarded. Okay? It's an amazing time to be alive. I'm super excited to have the opportunity to connect with you guys. And every single one of us, you have a decision to make. Is this worth trading your time for? Is what you're doing with your life right now worth investing some energy in so that you can do whatever you want with your life with amazing people? I think it is. That's why we're here, and I'm excited to connect with you guys. So we'll see you on the next Hangout. We'll see you in Las Vegas. We'll see you on our mobile phones connecting and sharing apps. Have an awesome week, and take care. Thanks, everybody. Bye.
See y'all.